extreme left, Jiti Ogunye again joins us today. Again, he's a data and information analyst and also Channels TV's in-house consultant. Sitting beside him is Mr. Jiti Ogunye, legal practitioner, also Channels TV's election consultant. And then we've got Demola Oshodi, a policy analyst. Gentlemen, thank you all for coming on today.
Many thanks indeed as well. Just as I was saying, I thought he was a happy man. Just midway into the interview, talking to him, until he said, no, he's not a happy man. Do you see the situation, for example, in Edo State, especially with Edo North local government area, where he said that one person was killed there? This is a situation that can be nipped in the bud. Remember, he says that the army are still there and they're not wearing tags and anything could happen. What are our greatest fears? What are we looking at here? Let me start with you, GT.
No, I didn't get the impression that he was a happy man. Indeed, he's very angry about those ugly developments. Now, we're talking about Edo State now. Don't forget that the Imo State governor earlier, in a program today, also had a similar bitter complaint about the role of the military. In River State, there is still being being tracked. We also have some of these complaints, and we need to understand something which is very fundamental in a democracy, and that is that although the military is charged with the responsibility of protecting the territorial integrity of the country and assisting civil authorities in the event of breakdown of law and order on a large scale in order to arrest the situation, the military must understand that they are subordinate to civil authority. And in the Federation, that civil authority does not reside in the President and Commander-in-Chief alone. We need to understand that. And that it is a shared authority amongst the layers of civil authorities in the country. So when in an election you have a situation whereby ministers in the federal government are given the free rein to be on the prowl, as we've witnessed even in state election in this country, and governors have been restricted and being harassed. That cannot be right.
But can we come to that conclusion that is the norm? If that's the perception, can we
it's
generalize?
not a perception, this is fact.
Can we generalize?
Look,
you say ministers.
Shimberly, I know how to be objective in order not, but I won't sacrifice honesty on the altar of dubious objectivity. I'm telling you, these are facts.
No, nobody's asking you to
you have not asked me. You have not asked me. I know I've never been asked to sacrifice objectivity. The point I'm making is that it's too common in this jurisdiction, in this country, when we're having election. And I'm not being particular about this dispensation, even before now.
But we haven't heard from the PDP that
I'm saying that that's objectionable. That is a fundamental issue. And secondly, the issue is that before this election, there was a lot of debate about the need to deploy the military. There were 3 judgments of the court, including an appeal tribunal, an election appeal tribunal, saying that the military ought not to be deployed. And eventually the military was deployed. And a lot of people who felt that for reasons of exigency and for practical purposes, the military ought to be deployed, felt that, well, if you deploy the military, it will infuse confidence in the process, people will feel safe. And that was not going to be a lot of problems. But when you then hear reports like this, even without jumping to conclusion, because I don't think that these governors are fabricating stories
Well, we will also get to hear from those who they've accused, so that will put them all in the same perspective. But in the meantime, let me also bring in this one, because earlier on today, we did hear from our correspondent, Harriet Agbayin, while she was here, talked about those who lost their lives in Ekwe, in Lagos, and then some other stories making the rounds across the country, even that of INEC. So we here commiserate with INEC and the families of those who lost their lives, and we just do hope that they will have the fortitude to bear the loss. Well, let me bring in Jiti Ogunye also on this matter. The election proceedings so far. Today, the INEC chairman, not long ago, spoke up about the process. Maybe he addressed certain questions that people have, maybe not, but he did speak about the cases he has heard about in Rivers, and then he spoke about logistics. Some NURT officials whom they had gotten into an arrangement with for logistics to move some of those INEC materials just refused to move, saying if you don't give us full payment, we're not living where we are. So to some extent, perhaps it suggests that contributed to the logistic challenge that INEC had.
Yeah, I think that contributed quite clearly, but we should clearly understand why wasn't there a plan B and a plan C. And what we've gotten right now are the reasons why there was failure. And we haven't gotten the reasons why there were no alternative plans. We've gotten the reasons, for example, the INEC chairman had also talked about just about 500 card readers out of the 150,000 card readers that only 500 filled. But that is a good way to look at it. Some days ago, the INEC, through the chief press secretary to the chairman, clearly made us understand that each card reader will be able to accredit up to 500 voters. So once you have 500 card readers that fail, it simply means up to 250,000 voters will not be able to vote. To put that in clear context, take the case of Ekiti, where you have 522,107 individuals who had collected their PVCs as at March 21st. What we expect in Ekiti when the results are released is about half of those numbers half of those PVC collected will vote. So we're expecting about between 250 and 280,000 voters in Ekiti. Now, if the INEC chairman says 500 card readers failed, it simply means 250,000 people will not be able to vote. Clearly, in simple terms, it's like saying everybody in Ekiti that will come out to vote will not be able to vote. That is what the implication of 500 card readers means.
Okay, let me get over to SD Onyekwe. He joins us from our studios in Abuja. Good evening. What's your impression of this process, especially in the light of the chairman of INEC's briefing on some of these logistical challenges, the hiccups, if you will, that the commission had about these elections?
Well, good evening. I think Nigeria had 4 years to prepare for this very election. And we have been assured and reassured that INEC is on top of the logistics chain. And in fact, there was a media show of the transportation of both sensitive and non-sensitive materials and their receipt in the states. And with this assurance, Nigerians had expected a better performance. The issue of logistics, for instance, talking about National Union of Road Transport Workers, is it for one state or the whole of the federation? Because the challenge is like it happened all across the federation. And then the issue of even some of the INEC ad hoc staff not being properly trained and then not doing their job as they should do, people getting late to where they should work, and then the whole issue of even some areas where they've mentioned security challenges that led to loss of lives and people were being maimed, or even the issue of arson properties were being burned. So I think that we have 4 years to prepare. Nigerians demand that we should have better elections. Yes, you could say what happened was statistically insignificant in respect of the card readers, but we are talking concretely about people who came out to vote, and maybe for one reason or the other, we are disenfranchised. So I think that we ought to have done better than we have done so far.
Would you have any recommendations, call it that, if you will, to advise INEC at this point in time concerning these very concerns we are looking at, especially to do with the card readers on the one hand, and also to look at how it can best deploy its staff on the second, and on the third, looking at decentralizing the process on its own, as a whole, decentralizing the collation of the results?
Well, the issue of recommendations for INEC may be a little bit too early. Let the results come out and let all the reports coming from all those who monitored or observed the elections. But I think going forward, we cannot be reinventing the wheel every time we are to have elections. We've been trying different methods or ways of doing these elections. I think whatever lessons we get from 2015, we should use it to carry over to 2019, so that at the end of the day, we cannot continue to say that we are in a learning process. I mean, we've been in this process for up to 15, 16 years, so that we can have a definite timeline by saying in 2019 that we should be able to deliver a good election without all these apologies that we are making.
What are the good takeaways that we have, that you have observed? What good can we take away from the elections so far?
Well, the fact that we have tried to introduce technology, even though there's been some challenges, is good enough. So we have to work on that. We don't have to say because there were challenges that we should no longer go ahead with it. We should correct all shortcomings, and so that it will be almost 90-something% perfect by the next time we are deploying it in 2019.
All right, let's bring in Demola. Demola, you've consulted with the World Bank. You've done certain things for INEC as well. But from what you've seen so far, are you impressed?
I think it's too early to say that the election has been a failure or even a success. But what we're seeing right now is challenges with the card reader and violence in some places in the country. But overall, as the INEC chief said, statistically, it's still quite a successful outcome, especially with the card reader. But I think what we are missing, the point we're missing here is that we improved from the 2011 process. And categorically, I would say, yes, we have. We have introduced technology. There's more voter awareness. There's harder to cheat for the politicians and even for all the interest groups, so to speak. There's more transparency. 4 years ago, we weren't as open as this. So it's that progress that actually concerns me the most. Have we improved from where we were before 4 years ago?
But I've heard people who have said, well, if they were to also continue in that breath, they think, well, now, in 2011, we didn't have people voting into the night, as we see today.
We did. We had some places that voted into the night.
As much as we're having in these elections.
Well, it's hard to tell, because in parts of the places, even in North, they weren't even voting that same day. They had to vote the next day. At least everybody had the attempt to vote the first day. That was yesterday. So last 4 years ago, some people didn't even vote at all the first day. And if you notice,
which is the same thing now.
Yeah, but some people still voted. I mean, they did the accreditation, and they probably did the voting today on Sunday. But at least there was an attempt.
So if we introduce technology, wasn't it meant to wipe out all of those challenges?
Well, it's still learning. It's still a learning thing with that technology. The first time we're using a card reader. Hopefully the next time we'll perfect it better.
Did it compound the problems?
I don't, definitely not. I think in many ways it made people feel more reassured that their vote is going to count, that it was going to be respected. There was less opportunity to cheat, and everybody knew that.